The fate of Great Xia? Looking at the small golden dragon on his wrist, Lin Qia's eyes filled with surprise. He originally thought that Hu Xubing's spear was meant to stop them, but he never imagined that this spear would carry a strand of Great Xia's national fate, directly infusing into their bodies. Chao Yuan stared at the small golden dragon on his wrist and asked confusedly, "With the national fate entering our bodies, why isn't there a significant improvement in our cultivation level?" "This national fate probably isn't meant to be used that way," said Qingyu, his eyes tinged with a gray light. "Although there's no improvement in spiritual power level, haven't you noticed? The spiritual power consumption when using forbidden domains has greatly decreased?" Lin Qia raised an eyebrow, carefully sensing the flow of spiritual power within his body, and a look of joy appeared on his face. "That's right, this national fate seems to be substituting for spiritual power, maintaining the operation of the forbidden domains. The effect of this national fate should be the same as what the commanders have. Spirit warriors are essentially souls without spiritual power, so they also use Great Xia's national fate to activate their forbidden domains." And Qingyu's lips curved into a smile. "This national fate is enough for us to use our abilities without restraint, without having to worry about spiritual power consumption. Just as the Marquis said earlier, it will last at least 2 days. Won't it affect Great Xia if the Marquis gives us this strand of national fate?" "Just a few strands like this shouldn't be a big problem, but any more would probably damage the foundation of the national fate," Bailey Pang couldn't help but say. "This is truly a magnificent gift." Lin Qia recalled the figure presiding over the torrent of national fate, and a warmth rose in his heart. He stood up from the somersault cloud, turned toward the direction of the island and bowed deeply. "Team Nightfall. Thanks the Marquis for his gift." The others also stood up and bowed. As the somersault cloud gradually left the vicinity of the island, Lin Qia turned and asked, "We should be outside the range of the national fate's influence now. Zhang Heir, is there a way to know the situation at Cheng'an Pass?" Left Qing's phone was already broken, and Lin Qia and the others temporarily had no other means to contact that side. Now, still some distance from Cheng'an Pass, it would be best to understand the current battle situation before reaching the front line. "Yes," Zhang Heir nodded. "The Night Watchers have their own encrypted communication channel. I can connect directly to that channel and eavesdrop on their communications." "Good." As Zhang Heir slowly closed her eyes, electromagnetic interference sounds came from the Bluetooth speaker at Qingyu's waist. Fasting Institute. In the noisy cafeteria, a youth wearing prison clothes slowly put down his chopsticks. He stood up, carrying his tray, calmly walked through the aisle, and neatly placed his tray and utensils in the collection area before turning to leave. Outside the plastic curtain door, a group of large, burly inmates were laughing and talking as they entered the cafeteria, nearly colliding with the youth. The fierce-looking man at the front frowned, about to curse, but when he caught a glimpse of the youth's face, he swallowed his words. The group of inmates simultaneously closed their mouths and respectfully stepped aside, making a spacious passage. The man who had bumped into the youth even buried his head to his chest, not daring to breathe loudly. The youth lightly brushed off the dust from his shoulder where he had been bumped, glanced at the man and walked out of the cafeteria without a word. Only after he had completely gone did the inmates breathe a sigh of relief, their tense bodies relaxing. Behind the crowd, a young inmate who had not been in the Fasting Institute for long looked curiously at the departing figure and asked in confusion, "Brother Long, who's that short guy? Is it necessary to be so nervous just because we bumped into him? What do you know?" The fierce man at the front wiped the sweat from his temple and glared at him. "You came in late, so there are things you don't understand. Let me tell you, in this Fasting Institute you can offend any other inmate, you can offend the guards, you can even risk your life trying to escape. But there are exactly 2 people you absolutely cannot offend, and you should walk around them when you see them. One is a man wearing a mental patient's uniform, disheveled and filthy, raving and talking to himself all day. The other is that youth. A madman and a kid who hasn't even grown his beard yet?" the young inmate asked, puzzled. "Why them?" Hearing this, the fierce man's expression changed and he slapped the young inmate on the head, cursing, "Why? Ask why. If you don't want to wake up one day with only half your body hanging from the ceiling, then watch your damn mouth. If you want to die, don't drag us into it. Get lost, get lost." The inmates pushed him away and hurriedly walked into the cafeteria, seemingly afraid of something. Outdoor activity area. Wuquan sat down on a rock in the corner. The sunlight shone on his body, flowing with warmth. He gently closed his eyes, his entire being relaxing. As Wuquan sat down, all inmates within a 50-meter radius unanimously stood up and moved away, as if avoiding a plague, silently vacating the area. He sat alone in the corner, basking in the sun, starting his midday rest. After some time, a rustling sound came from nearby. Wuquan opened his eyes and saw, not far from him, a figure wearing blue and white striped patient clothes, earnestly digging up a weed from the ground with a small toy shovel. Seeing that figure, Wuquan hesitated for a moment before getting up and walking to his side. "Old Dog Wu, what are you doing?" "I'm helping this little grass move house." Old Dog Wu pointed to the shadow cast by a distant wall and said seriously, "It can't get sunlight here. If this continues, it won't grow tall. I heard that a few days ago you cut more than a dozen inmates in half at the waist and hung them on the roof?" Old Dog Wu seemed to remember something and turned to ask. Wuquan was silent for a moment. "They attacked first. I wasn't planning to fight back, but after they insulted me, they started insulting my brother." "Your brother?" Old Dog Wu thought for a moment. "You mean the one you often talk about, Shin Qingzhu?" "Yes." A cold light flashed in Wuquan's eyes. "No one can insult my brother. Since they did that, they had to pay the price. However, I've been using my ability to control their blood flow. Even though they were cut in half, they won't die. At most, they'll just be half-body disabled." Old Dog Wu stared at Wuquan for a long time and sighed deeply. "The killing intent in you is too strong. At worst, I'll just be locked up here until I die." Wuquan paused. "Anyway, I don't have many years left to live." Old Dog Wu didn't speak, just silently dug up the weed and carefully cradled it in his palms. "What about you?" Wuquan suddenly asked. "Since you haven't committed any crime, why do you keep being locked up here? When can you leave?" Hearing these words, Old Dog Wu's body paused slightly. "Me," Old Dog Wu grinned, "I also want to be like you. It would be best to never leave this place for the rest of my life." He stood up, carrying the weeds and soil in his hands to an empty spot in the corner of the hospital, placing them in a pre-dug hole and gradually burying them. Looking at Old Dog Wu's busy silhouette, Wuquan shook his head slightly. What a strange person. Just as he was about to stand up, a low whistling sound flew overhead, and a gust of wind blew the fallen leaves off the ground. At the same time, all prisoners in the Fasting Institute looked up simultaneously, only to see a strangely shaped transport helicopter passing over several buildings before slowly landing on a helipad not far away. Helicopters coming to this island weren't unusual, as there were always new offenders being sent over, but this helicopter's design was extremely bizarre, as if someone had forcibly pieced together a pile of scrap metal, looking awkward from every angle. However, this small incident didn't attract much attention from the prisoners. Just as Wuquan was about to return to his cell, from the corner of his eye, he noticed Old Dog Wu had already stood up from the ground. He stood beside the small hole that wasn't yet fully filled, staring in the direction where the aircraft had landed, motionless like a statue. "What are you looking at?" Wuquan walked to his side and asked. Old Dog Wu didn't speak, as if his soul had left his body. As Wuquan was about to ask more, a figure approached directly from the distance. Dr. Li, wearing a white coat, slowly stopped in front of the two. He looked at Old Dog Wu with complex eyes, opened his mouth and spoke somewhat hoarsely. "Wu Tongxian, it's time for you to leave." Bumble. The heavy metal door slowly opened, and after passing through a corridor, a simple helipad appeared in view. Wuquan followed Old Dog Wu and Dr. Li, slowly walking to the side of the helipad. The pieced-together rotor was gradually slowing down, but the gust still made the three men's clothes flutter. Several figures were orderly unloading something from the transport's cabin. As they got closer, Wuquan could see clearly that they were heavy black coffins. What happened? Wuquan frowned and asked upon seeing this scene. Dr. Li glanced at him and shook his head. "Don't ask too much, just watch." Old Dog Wu stood in front of the damaged cabin, looking at the black coffins being carried out, with his back to everyone, his expression hidden. After a moment, everything was arranged with the black coffins lined up in front of Old Dog Wu, exactly 7 in total. "Dr. Li, Commanders Wahatas bring these from the front line. They're all here, a pilot solemnly announced. I understand, thank you for your hard work. Dr. Lee patted his shoulder, looking at Old Dog Wu's back with a deep sigh. Old Dog Wu, dressed in blue and white striped hospital clothes, slowly walked past each coffin. His fingertips brushed against the cold caskets, his cloudy eyes showing unprecedented sorrow. Boom! In the clear sky, a muffled thunder suddenly sounded. Ink-black clouds appeared from nowhere and the sunlight visibly dimmed. In just a matter of seconds, the clear sky became overcast as if a storm was approaching. Wuquan looked up at this change in weather, feeling puzzled. How strange that the weather changed just like when he was in a bad mood. Old Dog Wu stopped at the last coffin. His fingertips trembled as he withdrew them, clenched his fist and struck the coffin lid forcefully. Thud. 7 explosive sounds rang out simultaneously and all the black coffins shattered. In the white lightning that tore through the sky, 7 corpses draped in black cloaks lay quietly on the cold ground. They were the medium squad. Old Dog Wu's cloudy gaze swept over their faces one by one, finally resting on Bu Li in front of him. Bu Li's body was covered with hideous wounds, his black cloak tattered beyond repair. His pale lips curved in a faint smile, the aftermath of using ghost god summoning. Old Dog Wu looked at him for a long time. His dry lips parted and his hoarse voice echoed across the helipad. Did they accomplish their mission? The pilot was startled, then nodded firmly, his eyes full of admiration. Of course they did. If not for the medium squad's desperate resistance, sacrificing their lives to hold back the divine beast horde, Chinnan Pass wouldn't have lasted until the Great Xia God and reinforcements arrived. They are heroes of the entire Great Xia. Hearing this answer, a look of comfort appeared on Old Dog Wu's face. He slowly closed his eyes as raindrops began falling from the sky, soaking patches into his blue and white striped hospital clothes. The rain grew heavier. After some time, Old Dog Wu finally spoke. Dr. Lee, could you do me one last favor? Tell me, Dr. Lee replied. Ask the cafeteria to prepare some more dishes and bring a few bottles of good wine. Old Dog Wu said slowly, standing in the rain. I want to welcome my brothers home. Having the Fasting Institute's cafeteria prepare food was just a phone call away for Dr. Lee. In less than 20 minutes, steaming dishes were hurriedly sent over from the cafeteria. The transport helicopter had already flown away. On the empty helipad, a simple camp was quickly set up with tarpaulins and iron frames, with a large round table and 8 chairs. As dishes were placed on the table and wine bottles opened, this welcome feast was arranged methodically by Dr. Lee amid the pouring rain. Old Dog Wu slowly crouched down in front of Bu Li's body, grasping his hand. A faint light flashed in the depths of Old Dog Wu's eyes. He leaned close to Bu Li's ear and whispered, Everyone, time to wake up. As soon as the words fell, all 7 cold corpses on the ground sat up simultaneously. This scene startled Wuquan, who was watching nearby. He turned to Dr. Lee in shock. Does Old Dog Wu also have Emperor's Command? No, what he has isn't Emperor's Command. At least not now, Dr. Lee said slowly, watching the figures gradually standing up under the canopy. Old Dog Wu possesses the 7th King's Ruin, Formless. Formless can perfectly copy any forbidden ruin it has recently touched, and elevate the ruin's level to match its own. Besides forbidden ruins, it can also copy divine ruins, though the copied version isn't as complete as the original. When you first arrived, he copied Emperor's Command from you, but its completion isn't as good as yours, since your forbidden ruin is directly connected to your lifespan. He copied my Emperor's Command? Wuquan murmured. No wonder there was such a dramatic change in the weather earlier. The emotions of Emperor's Command directly affect the weather. When one feels joyful and happy, the sky is clear. When sad and depressed, it rains continuously. Is he now also using Emperor's Dominion to control these corpses? No, this is Forbidden Relic Sequence 034. Medium. Dr. Lee explained, this forbidden relic is also quite rare. It's said to be able to directly communicate with the deceased, interact with them, and allow them to regain control of their own bodies and abilities for the user's benefit. However, this is just a legend. There haven't been many people with this forbidden relic throughout history. Another theory suggests that Medium simply controls corpses, and the supposed communication with the deceased is merely the user's imagination. Since controlling the bodies and minds of the dead creates enormous pressure on the medium, they can only cope by imagining these corpses have their own consciousness, making the control become an instinctive function of the subconscious to reduce pressure. It's similar to the principle of schizophrenia. Between these two theories, which one represents the true nature of medium, has never been answered. Perhaps only the medium themselves know. Wuquan remained silent for a moment, but if it's just controlling corpses, Emperor's Dominion can do that too. It's different. Dr. Li shook his head. Your Emperor's Dominion is a form of physical domination. You can control their muscles, their organs, their growth, and externally they appear no different from living people. But this is like controlling a marionette. It's merely manipulation. Medium, besides controlling corpses, can also master their forbidden relics, and the level of the corpses being controlled can increase with the growth of the user's mental strength. For example, if a Klein level medium simultaneously controls two Chuan level corpses, under the nourishment of his mental power, these two corpses can directly rise to Wuliang, or even Klein level. The relationship between medium and corpses isn't simple control, but a form of parasitic coexistence. I see. Wuquan nodded thoughtfully. Medium is powerful, but it has many limitations. Dr. Li looked at the figures wearing black cloaks. Since controlling corpses creates enormous mental pressure for the medium, generally they can only control a few corpses at once, and the level of the corpse during its lifetime cannot exceed the user's own. Most importantly, for a medium to control a corpse, they must first obtain permission from the person before death. If no promise was made while they were alive, then after death, no matter how hard the medium tries, they cannot awaken them. The captain of the medium team, Bu Li, wasn't originally the leader of this team. Their original captain was a thunder-wielding half-step human ceiling-level powerhouse. However, this captain discovered Bu Li's ability and was amazed, so they made a pact. If anyone in the team died in battle, Bu Li would use medium to spiritually resurrect them, binding them together in life and death from then on. Later, this team went through crisis after crisis, and more team members were spiritually connected by Bu Li, until even the captain died in battle, leaving only Bu Li and Old Dog Wu in the team. Bu Li honored the agreement, spiritually connecting all team members, becoming the captain of the medium team, while Old Dog Wu became the vice-captain. Old Dog Wu's formless was too special, so after discussing with Bu Li, they decided to let Old Dog Wu stay at the abstinence hall while Bu Li led the medium team to fight across the land. This way, even if Bu Li died in battle one day, as long as all the bodies were delivered to Old Dog Wu within a specified time, allowing him to copy medium and become the captain, the team would not perish. The pact of life and death could continue. This is medium. As Dr. Li finished speaking, Wuquan was utterly astonished. No wonder, Wuquan murmured, but is what they're doing really worth it? Everyone has something they want to uphold in their hearts. This is the choice of the entire medium team, and for them, it's naturally worth it. Dr. Li turned his head and gave Wuquan a complex look. Wuquan, what do you want to uphold? Wuquan opened his mouth but couldn't say anything, eventually falling silent. Seeing this, Dr. Li didn't press further. This lesson from Old Dog Wu and medium had achieved its goal if it planted a seed in Wuquan's heart. His gaze turned toward the helipad in the heavy rain. Raindrops fell from the edge of the tarpaulin, dripping onto the ground. The evaporating mist swirled around, intertwining with the steam rising from the hot pot in the center of the round table. Old Dog Wu sat at the table holding a wine pot, pouring drinks for each figure seated around the table. His hair was no longer messy and disheveled, but neatly combed, making him look quite spirited. The torrential rain poured down on the ground, making a deep rushing sound. Under the lifeless tarpaulin, only the hot pot bubbled noisily. After pouring wine for everyone, Old Dog Wu raised his own cup and stood up from his seat. All these years, thank you everyone for working hard out there. To be honest, the deadweight, have been enjoying life here in the abstinence hall. I really feel guilty about it. No more words, I'll punish myself with a drink first. Old Dog Wu tilted his head back and drained the white liquor in one gulp. The burning liquid flowed down his throat into his stomach. Old Dog Wu frowned slightly and quickly poured himself another full cup. Today is a good day. Brothers have accomplished great deeds and I should leave this place to fight alongside you all. Do you know all these years I've been dreaming of this day. Come, let's all drink together. As Old Dog Wu raised his cup, the 7 corpses around the table simultaneously lifted their hands. 8 cups collided above the hot pot, making a crisp sound. They all tilted their heads back and drank in one gulp. Come on everyone, don't just drink, have some food too. Old Dog Wu said cheerfully. I'm not exaggerating, the boss of this abstinence hall is my good friend. I guarantee everyone will eat to their heart's content today. The 7 figures seated around the table all moved their chopsticks, silently picking up dishes from their plates and putting them into their pale mouths. Little Grass, why didn't you finish your cup? Everyone else drank up. Are you raising fish in there? Little Stone is right. You need to drink 3 more cups as punishment. Come on, everyone try our cafeteria's braised pork knuckle. To be honest, the other dishes here aren't that great, but this knuckle is truly exceptional. Finger-guessing game? I don't think so, Captain Lei. I'm getting old, I really can't play these games anymore. Damn it. Let's play. Little Pear saved Great Xia today and is a great hero. Whatever he says, I'll play. No, Captain Lei, I really wasn't cheating. I'll punish myself with 3 more cups. The rain poured down heavily. 7 cold corpses like sculptures. At the lively dining table, Old Dog Wu was already pounding the table, laughing until tears appeared. This heavy rain poured all night. Wu Chuan also silently watched by the side all night. He witnessed Old Dog Wu gulping down white liquor one mouthful after another, saw him chatting animatedly with those 7 cold corpses, watched him punch the helipad and create hideous cracks, saw him break down crying in the heavy rain, and observed him sitting rigidly on that chair like a soulless statue until dawn. The rain had gradually stopped, but the faint light of dawn still couldn't penetrate the thick dark clouds, leaving the world between heaven and earth extremely gloomy. Raindrops dripped along the edges of the tarpaulin. The dishes on the table had grown cold, and Old Dog Wu, who had been sitting silently on the stool, finally slowly regained his senses and stood up unsteadily. The banquet is over. Old Dog Wu looked at the barely touched food on the table and murmured, "We should set off now." Several stools were pushed back and 7 corpses slowly rose, their tattered black cloaks swaying in the gentle breeze. Old Dog Wu turned and walked out from under the simple tarpaulin, with 7 figures following closely behind. The mirror-like water surface reflected their black shadows and those pale faces. Dr. Li, wearing a white coat, walked out from the abstinence facility. He first glanced at Wu Chuan beside him, then looked at Old Dog Wu with his bloodshot eyes and spoke with complexity. "You're leaving now?" "Yes." Old Dog Wu replied calmly. "The situation at Chinnan Gate is still tense. We can't waste time here." "Wu Tongxian, are you really ready?" Old Dog Wu quietly gazed at Dr. Li without speaking. He simply closed his eyes slowly. In the next moment, a human ceiling-level pressure suddenly descended. Wu Chuan felt the terrifying force pressing on his shoulders and his pupils slightly contracted. He never imagined that this seemingly insane and unremarkable mental patient had unknowingly reached this level. Sensing Old Dog Wu's aura, Dr. Li's expression relaxed somewhat. "When did you break through?" 6 months ago, I already crossed the threshold." Old Dog Wu looked back at the flimsy tarpaulin swaying in the wind. "Last night I broke through the heart barrier." Dr. Li nodded, instinctively wanting to offer congratulations, but ultimately held back. "I've brought your things." Dr. Li took out a black box from behind him and handed it to Old Dog Wu. "When you first came to this hospital, I had them kept safe. All these years, I've been waiting for the day to return them to you." Old Dog Wu opened the box to find a straight knife, an emblem, and a neatly folded black cloak quietly arranged inside. "Thank you." Old Dog Wu looked at these 3 items, his eyes showing nostalgia. He put away the emblem, hung the straight knife at his waist, and with a light wave, the black cloak floated onto his blue and white striped hospital gown. With these 3 items on, Old Dog Wu's back immediately straightened. His previously messy and lazy demeanor disappeared, and his eyes shone bright as stars. As if remembering something, he asked Dr. Li, "Aren't you coming with us?" "Me?" Dr. Li smiled and shook his head. "I'm just a doctor. How could I go to the front lines?" Old Dog Wu narrowed his eyes and gave him a strange look, seemingly not believing his words. How will you travel? Do you need me to call a helicopter for you? No need. Old Dog Wu shook his head. Among the 7 shadows behind him, one slowly raised both hands, and a violent whirlwind gathered beneath their feet, quickly lifting them into the air. Old Dog Wu's black cloak fluttered loudly under the dark clouds. He looked back one last time at Dr. Li and the abstinence facility where he had spent several years and calmly said, "We're leaving." Whoosh. 8 black figures rode the whirlwind, their forms darting away, disappearing at the horizon in the blink of an eye. Dr. Li watched their departing figures, sighed deeply, and turned to walk back into the abstinence facility. After taking just a few steps, he turned his head toward the figure in the corner and said, "Aren't you coming? Do you want to escape too?" Wu Chuan came to his senses and gave him a somewhat speechless look before quickly following. As the heavy metal door slowly closed, this isolated abstinence facility once again fell into complete silence. Rustle, rustle, rustle. This is Chin'an Gate Defense Line 4. Those lizards have launched a new round of attacks. Requesting reinforcements. Defense Line 3 received. A heavy firepower unit has been dispatched. This is Defense Line 5. We have no spare personnel, but Mr. Liu has received the message and is heading that way. Defense Line 2 is also short-handed. The night watchers stationed here were all sacrificed at the very beginning. When will reinforcements from other passes arrive? This is Jialan Gate. All our night watchers have assembled and are about to rush to aid Chin'an Gate. This is Qinlong Gate. Our first batch of night watcher squads has already departed. This is Shuahan Gate. The roar of helicopter rotors echoed across the helipad as 18 figures wearing dark red cloaks and carrying black cases quickly gathered in the cabin despite the strong winds. This is Jialan Gate, an A-class war pass more than 600 kilometers from Chin'an Gate. As the last night watcher rushed into the cabin, the helicopter slowly rose, carrying everyone rapidly toward Chin'an Gate. On many other helipads between the inner and outer walls, aircraft loaded with heavy thermal weapons were taking off one after another. Hong Ying settled in her seat and looked through the window at Jialan Gate gradually receding below, her eyes full of concern. "What are you thinking about?" When Qima sitting beside her asked. "I'm wondering how things are at Chin'an Gate." Hong Ying sighed deeply. "I heard them say that all the gods from the Indian Temple of Gods have descended upon Chin'an Gate, and all the station night watchers have been sacrificed. I don't know how much longer they can hold out. Don't worry too much, it will be fine." When Qima comforted her. "The great Xia gods have already rushed over and many human ceiling-level experts are there. Even if they caught us off guard at first, as long as we buy a little more time, the initiative will definitely return to our hands. Don't forget this is Great Xia. We have the home field advantage." "He's right." A young woman carrying a large black case sitting across from them nodded. "Before boarding the plane, I heard encrypted channel messages that the situation there has temporarily stabilized. The great Xia gods have withstood the first wave from the Temple of Gods, and those above god level are basically being pinned down by the Heavenly Court, making it difficult for them to break through the Heavenly Court's defense line. The main problem now is that Chin'an Gate has suffered severe personnel losses and is struggling against some of the more numerous divine beasts. However, once reinforcements from other passes continuously arrive, the situation should improve." After hearing her analysis, Hong Ying nodded. "That's good. By the way, you look a bit unfamiliar. I was transferred from Qinlong Gate a few days ago." The young woman extended her hand straightforwardly. "My name is Molly." As the plane flew at full speed, a continuous range of mountains appeared in Red Tassel's view through the window. At this moment they were still over 100 kilometers away from Chin'an Gate, but the distant sky seemed to be torn apart, with various divine lights flashing in succession. Thunderous explosions like countless thunderclaps echoed without cease. This brilliant sky reflected in everyone's eyes, the dancing divine light constantly impacting their spirits. "Is this what a divine miracle looks like?" Temperature Chi Mo murmured, feeling the overwhelming pressure. The helicopter changed direction, flying around the sky covered by divine light. As they got closer, everyone could see from afar that the mountains in the divine battle zone had been leveled to the ground. Heart-wrenching ravines and giant craters silently told the story of this war's brutality. Amid the tense atmosphere, the helicopter gradually descended. Why are we landing? We're still at least 10 kilometers from Chin'an Gate, aren't we? One night watcher asked in surprise. Chin'an Gate is under attack from divine beast hordes, and there are many two-headed birds circling in the airspace. If we fly any further, we'll be shot down, the pilot's voice came through. We can only take you this far. You'll have to cross the remaining distance on your own. The passengers exchanged glances, smiling bitterly in resignation. Traversing more than 10 kilometers of mountains would be an extreme challenge for ordinary people, but for these well-trained night watchers, it wasn't a difficult task. As the helicopter hovered above a cliff, one figure after another in dark red cloaks quickly jumped down. Red Tassel landed steadily on the ground with her gun case on her back, noticing from the corner of her eye several other helicopters slowly descending nearby, just like theirs. Looks like there's quite a bit of reinforcement, Temperature Chiemo said. Night watchers from the other 11 war gates have basically all been transferred here. Molly looked at the departing helicopter. You could say nearly half of Great Xia's night watchers are here now. Never thought I'd live to see such a grand operation, Temperature Chiemo smiled bitterly. The night watcher team from Jalan Gate moved swiftly through the mountains. When they climbed to the top of a peak, they finally saw the silver-white steel fortress in the distance. Giant two-headed birds circled above the outer walls of Chin'an Gate, emitting piercing screeches. Compared to them, the dozen or so fighter jets flying over the inner gate seemed as small as sparrows. At the northern horizon, dense formations of fighter jets and bombers rushed toward the scene, fiercely battling with several giant birds. The explosive flames turned one corner of the sky red. More than half of the giant birds still eyed the interior of Chin'an Gate vigilantly, seemingly wanting to charge in directly but hesitating due to some concern. The outer walls of Chin'an Gate were covered with cracks and fractures. The nearby mountains had been completely leveled, and many terrifying giant beasts with strange appearances surged across the broken land, trying to bypass Chin'an Gate. But Chin'an Gate covered too large an area. To bypass this fortress, the beasts would need to go around the steel outer wall with a diameter exceeding 70 kilometers. During this time, countless missiles and top-tier combat forces would emerge to firmly resist the beast hordes. Therefore, these beasts changed their strategy, continuously attacking several weak points of the outer wall in groups. They had already broken through several large holes and were frantically pouring into the gap between the inner and outer walls. In this gap, some highly destructive long-range thermal weapons couldn't be effective. They could only rely on numerous close-combat thermal weapons and humans with close combat abilities to block them. Continuous roars of giant beasts echoed between the inner and outer walls, making one's heart tremble. Has the situation at Chin'an Gate become this dangerous? Red Tassel's face darkened at the sight. Let's speed up, Temperature Chiemo said solemnly. If this continues, Chin'an Gate might not hold much longer. Everyone immediately set off, and under full-speed assault, Chin'an Gate rapidly grew larger in their view. But at the same time, a small group of snakes roaming outside the outer wall noticed them, roaring fiercely and surging toward them frantically. We've been spotted. Red Tassel narrowed her eyes, her hand forcefully slapping the long black case on her back. A red-tasseled spear wrapped in rose-colored flames shot out. She grabbed the spear and rose-colored flames wove into a flowing wide robe over her body. Waves of intense heat swept outward. Prepare for battle. The dozen or so night watchers simultaneously entered combat mode, rushing toward Chin'an Gate while preparing to counter the snake group's attack from the side. As the terrifying pressure from the snake group gradually approached, everyone's expressions grew solemn. Among their group of night watchers, only 2 were at the Klein level. Most of the others were between the sea and measureless boundaries. Although the snake group had only 4 giant snakes, the aura they emitted was basically all at the Klein boundary. Fighting hard wasn't impossible, but the casualties would be extremely severe, and they hadn't even entered Chin'an Gate yet. Just as everyone was preparing to grit their teeth and fight, a straight knife wrapped in green light shot out like lightning from the nearby outer wall of Chin'an Gate. The blade cut through the air, instantly severing the head of a giant snake. Left Green, wearing a dark red cloak, floated ghost-like to everyone's side, reaching out to pull the straight knife embedded in the ground. His eyes, full of fatigue, narrowed slightly. "Are you from Jalan Gate?" Left Green asked hoarsely. "That's right. The side gate is already open. Get in quickly. Left Green looked at the 3 giant snakes before him and the other beast hordes approaching in the distance, speaking in a deep voice. Yes. Without any hesitation, everyone turned and rushed at full speed toward the gradually opening side gate in the outer wall. Reinforcements from other gates also arrived successively and quickly followed. The opening of this side gate instantly attracted the attention of many giant beasts roaming outside the wall. They roared and swarmed toward this location. Several divine beasts of enormous size directly locked onto Left Green himself, with terrifying pressure surging over like a tidal wave. Left Green stood in place, slowly tightening his grip on the straight knife, his expression completely calm. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Figures in golden cloaks quickly jumped down from the outer wall, standing shoulder to shoulder beside Left Green. The leader of the Phoenix squad, S156, glanced at the dust-covered Left Green and couldn't help saying, "Commander Left, why don't you go back inside the gate and rest for a while? You've been fighting continuously for almost 2 days. Our squad can hold the line." Left Qing shook his head. "There aren't many human sealing experts to begin with, and I still have my duties as Commander-in-Chief. Now is not the time to rest." Left Qing gripped his knife handle firmly, saying nothing more as his figure transformed into a streak of green light, charging into the beast horde first. Seeing this, S156 decisively said, "Let's go too." The 9 figures of the Phoenix team followed closely behind Left Qing into the beast horde. At the edge of the southern outer wall of Qinan Pass, a fierce battle erupted. As Left Qing's figure continuously flashed through the beast horde, his blade, now almost dyed dark red, left deep cuts on the divine beasts' bodies. As he swung his final strike to behead a divine beast, a voice came through the communicator at his waist. "This is Qinan Pass Defense Line 6. A group of Indian divine beasts that can control Earth has broken through our firepower network and is heading toward the rear of Qinan Pass." Hearing this, Left Qing's heart sank. He immediately distanced himself from another divine beast, holding his knife in one hand while picking up the communicator with the other. "How many?" "About 5 divine beasts that can control Earth, but they're also bringing more than 10 peak, Klein-level Yiksha monsters. They can burrow underground and they move extremely fast. We can't stop them." Left Qing's expression immediately darkened. 5 divine beasts plus more than 10 Yikshas. This number was beyond what ordinary night watchers or conventional weapons could handle. Even human sealing experts would need at least 2 to deal with them. But at this critical moment, with Qinan Pass on the verge of being breached, where could they find spare manpower to pursue these incredibly fast divine beasts? It's worth noting that once Qinan Pass falls, what rushes toward the cities won't be limited to just a few divine beasts. What lies in their path of advance? About 400 kilometers beyond Qinan Pass is Jiangqing City, with several county towns around it, totaling over 4 million in population. Further beyond are several second-tier major cities. Left Qing's mind raced. Immediately order all night watcher teams stationed in southern Great Xia cities to head to Jiangqing City and surrounding counties at maximum speed. But Commander Left, those currently guarding cities within Great Xia are mostly newcomers who joined the Night Watchers just a few years ago. Even if they gather in Jiangqing City, they can't stop these beast hordes. Moreover, given how fast these divine beasts move, they might not make it in time. Do as I say. Left Qing paused briefly as if making some kind of resolution. Additionally, I'll give you an address shortly. It's an island. Send someone to fire a signal flare toward that island and then... Before Left Qing could finish, the walkie-talkie in his hand began to crackle with interference. His brows furrowed tightly. Why at this moment of all times? "Hello? Oh. Commander Left? Can you hear me?" After a burst of static noise, a familiar voice came through from the other end of the communicator. Left Qing froze in place. 1 minute earlier. Above the clouds, the somersault cloud swiftly passed over the southern cities of Great Xia. Lin Jie and the others sat around Jiang Air, listening carefully to something. Qinan Pass South Gate receiving 4 Night Watcher reinforcement teams, now redirecting to various defense lines. A 2-headed bird has been shot down at the east inner wall. Ground combat personnel watch out. 3 divine beasts have broken through Gate 1. Requesting support. Repeat. Requesting support. This is Chinan Pass Defense Line 6. A group of Indian divine beasts that can control Earth has broken through our firepower network and is heading toward the rear of Chinan Pass. How many? About 5 divine beasts that can control Earth, but they're also bringing. As these communications came through the Bluetooth speaker, Lin Chia and the others frowned, their expressions growing increasingly grave. That's Commander Left's voice. Bailey Pang Pang exclaimed upon hearing the last few sentences. Jiangqing City? And Qingyu recalled the map of Great Xia in his mind. That seems not far from our current position. How long would it take to get there from here? At our current speed, 2 minutes at most. Lin Chia's eyes flickered with light. 2 minutes. Should be faster than those divine beasts. But aren't there 5 divine beasts plus more than 10 peak Klein level Yikshas? Chao Yuan frowned deeply. Even if we go there, can we hold them off? Under normal circumstances we couldn't. Lin Chia raised his wrist, where a thumb-sized golden dragon slowly coiled around it, his eyes narrowing. But now, with Great Xia's national fortune protecting us, we should be able to. Then what are we waiting for? Bailey Pang Pang immediately stood up, rubbing his hands together. Let's crush them. Jiang Air, can you connect to Commander Left's communication device? Lin Chia pondered for a moment, then asked. Yes. Jiang Air raised her fingertip, rapidly disturbing the surrounding magnetic field, then nodded at Lin Chia. Lin Chia took a deep breath. Hello? Oh. Commander Left? Can you hear me? Left Qing on the other end of the communicator was stunned for a moment before responding with surprise. Lin Chia? How is it you? It's a long story. Lin Chia got straight to the point. Leave Jiangqing City to us. We're in the vicinity right now. You've left the island? Left Qing seemed to realize something. Is this the Marquis's intention? Something like that. Left Qing paused briefly, not pursuing the matter further. Now wasn't the time for that. The beast horde heading to Jiangqing City has 5 divine beasts that can control Earth, Lin Chia said directly. Don't worry, Commander Left, we can handle it. Really? Lives are at stake, are you? Left Qing's tone was still concerned. Really? Lin Chia replied firmly. After a moment of silence, Left Qing finally said, All right, be careful. If you find the situation beyond your capabilities, contact me immediately. Yes, sir. Lin Chia had Jiang Air put away the speaker, nodded to everyone and immediately propelled the somersault cloud at full speed toward Jiangqing City. The howling wind rushed past their ears. Moments later, a series of black dots suddenly appeared in everyone's field of vision. What's that? Chao Yuan narrowed his eyes. Are the divine beasts here so quickly? No, those aren't divine beasts. They look like people, and Qingyu shook his head. Lin Chia extended his spiritual power, scanning the 8 figures gradually approaching and froze in place. It's medium? Those 8 figures speeding through the air seemed to notice the night curtain here. The hurricane surrounding them began to slow down and stopped in front of the nimbus cloud. The leading figure stared at Lin Chia and slowly lifted his wide brim, revealing a familiar face. Old Dog Wu. Lin Chia immediately recognized this fellow patient from Sunshine Mental Hospital, his expression incredibly complex. When he encountered those 7 black coffins being sent to the abstinence facility on the island, Lin Chia had roughly guessed what would happen, but seeing the crazy old Dog Wu wearing a black cloak with a straight knife at his waist standing before him still gave him a feeling of being in another world. Lin Chia. Old Dog Wu's voice was somewhat hoarse. He smiled bitterly. We meet again. It's been over 3 years, hasn't it? Lin Chia's gaze swept over the 7 black figures behind him. I never thought you would eventually leave that hospital and become the captain of Medium. Same for you. Old Dog Wu and Lin Chia exchanged glances, sharing a knowing smile. Who could have imagined that the only 2 patients in the abstinence facility hospital over 3 years ago would transform to each lead one of Xia's top special teams, about to rush to the battlefield of gods. So, your ability now is medium? Lin Chia recalled Old Dog Wu's, formless, and asked. Yes. Old Dog Wu nodded slightly. Your Dark Divine Domain and Wuchuan's Emperor of Dominance are both excellent, but they don't suit me. Perhaps this ability is my ultimate destination. As he finished speaking, Old Dog Wu looked back at the 7 figures behind him, his gaze somewhat complex. The breeze brushed past the tattered black cloaks, and beneath the pale bones, all 7 figures emanated an aura of human ceiling level. Formless, only allows one to possess the most recently touched forbidden domain, and when a new forbidden domain appears, the previously copied one disappears. This king domain has extremely high upper and lower limits, but Old Dog Wu clearly didn't want to waste more time on other abilities. Although medium isn't classified as a king domain or divine domain, for Old Dog Wu, who commands the entire medium team, it's even stronger than king or divine domains. With Old Dog Wu reaching the human ceiling, the other members of medium would also be enhanced by his level. For those team members who possessed extremely powerful forbidden domains or even divine domains, their combat power was already comparable to human ceiling level. It's no exaggeration to say that under Old Dog Wu's leadership, the medium team had become the ceiling of Xia's Night Watchers. Sensing the terrifying aura of the medium team, Lin Chia's eyes flashed with shock followed by joy. "How's the situation at the front line?" Old Dog Wu asked proactively. "Not good." Lin Chia thought for a moment. Qinan Pass is understaffed and at its limit. Another group of divine beasts has broken through the outer walls blockade and is heading toward Jiangqing City. Jiangqing City? Old Dog Wu nodded. "So, you're heading to Jiangqing?" "Yes." "Do you need our help?" "No," Lin Chia responded decisively. "We'll handle Jiangqing City. You go ahead to support the front line. Once we deal with the divine beasts here, we'll join you immediately." Lin Chia had learned about the frontline situation through encrypted channels. If the medium team could reach Qinan Pass with their combat power comparable to human ceiling level, they could greatly relieve the pressure on the pass. "All right." Old Dog Wu nodded. "Then we'll see you at the front line." "Yes." Old Dog Wu put his hood back on, and the hurricane carried the 8 figures rapidly across the sky, heading straight toward Qinan Pass. The current medium is incredibly strong. Chao Yuan couldn't help but sigh. Now, perhaps even commanders couldn't defeat them? It's a good thing medium has returned. Lin Chia paused, then let out a long sigh. Unfortunately, Old Dog Wu must be feeling terrible. "Let's hurry to Jiangqing City. I need to make some preparations in advance." The nimbus cloud accelerated again, the ground rapidly receding beneath them. In just over a minute, a city with dense spider web-like networks appeared in their vision. "Chia, what's your plan?" And Qingyu pushed up his glasses and asked. Lin Chia gently pressed his palm in the void, and strands of night colors traced out several complex and profound patterns that appeared before everyone. "Hurry and arrange these patterns around the edges of Jiangqing City as large as possible," Lin Chia said seriously. "Understood." Qinan Pass. Above the sky, beyond the atmosphere. In the boundless deep space, countless stars twinkled and snow-white clouds floated on the surface of the azure planet. Here the deep blue of space merged with the pure white of clouds, lonely yet beautiful in a world of deathly silence. Above the dim sky, a massive Buddha statue slowly took shape. Brilliant stars seemed like a thin veil covering that face that appeared to be both crying and smiling. Just this face alone blocked out the sun and sky. "Vishnu." A voice penetrated the void, falling upon the ears of the Buddha statue. A figure wearing a black and white Taoist robe with straw sandals on his feet walked through the air. His messy hair swayed gently in the vacuum, his eyes extremely sharp. The Buddha statue behind the countless stars remained motionless, just looking down at the Taoist with that half-smiling, half-crying expression. Compared to that enormous body, the Taoist seemed as insignificant as an ant. This poor Taoist thought you were not like Asgard and Olympus, that you wouldn't take advantage of others in their time of need. "Now it seems I overestimated you." The moral celestial lord spoke coldly. The Buddha statue looked down at the Taoist as if not hearing, only slowly raising one hand, pressing down toward the Taoist's head. With Vishnu revealing his true form in space, he was already immensely huge. This descending hand could easily crush any city in Xia. The golden palm was like a falling sky, each palm line clearly visible to the Taoist. Seeing this, the moral celestial lord's eyes flashed with cold light. The city-destroying hand rapidly enlarged in his eyes, but he showed no intention of dodging. He formed a Taoist mudra with one hand, and his black and white Taoist robe moved without wind. In an instant, the wooden sword behind him soared into the sky, and the entire world was dyed in black and white. The descending hand became as white as paper. As the wooden sword, like a drop of black ink, cut through deep space, several huge fingers broke off in the air like cut paper. Black flames appeared out of nowhere, burning them without a trace. Do you truly believe that our great Xia is a soft persimmon that anyone can squeeze? The moral celestial lord said coldly. The empty gate can only be entered one way, not exited in reverse. If this poor Taoist hasn't guessed wrong, only Brahma remains in your divine temple now, correct? India. The temple of the gods. The empty gate, covered in Sanskrit, stood tall above the rolling mist in the clouds. Behind the gate, brilliant divine light collided and intertwined, tearing long streaks across the sky. Despite the intense divine battle behind the empty gate, not a single sound transmitted through the gate, as if even sound itself could not pass through this one-way portal. Suddenly, above this silent massive gate, space abruptly distorted, like a lake into which a giant stone had been thrown, with ripples rapidly spreading outward. Boom! A deep rumble emanated from the sky, ethereal spiritual energy dispersed in the mist, and the solemn, magnificent outline of a celestial palace emerged. At the same time, a voice like shocking thunder instantly exploded in the air. Brahma. This voice was deep and majestic, seemingly tinged with anger. Before the central palace gate suspended high above the celestial court, a Taoist stood with hands behind his back, his eyes sweeping across the void before him like sharp swords. At this moment, apart from the Taoist, there were no other Daxia gods in the celestial court. This lone figure and the palace stood tall in the sky, like a volcano about to erupt. Hiding, are you? The primordial heavenly lord spoke softly. The heavenly lord took a step forward, instantly teleporting outside the celestial court, his Taoist robe dancing wildly in the wind. He raised his fingertip and gently pointed at the void before him. The empty celestial court suddenly shook, surging immortal energy billowed out, golden threads danced above the celestial court, and invisible ripples rapidly spread outward from the center. As these invisible ripples swept across a corner of the void, an ancient temple hidden in space trembled slightly and was forced to materialize again, standing directly in front of the celestial court. In terms of size, this temple was smaller than the celestial court. Countless Sanskrit inscriptions were carved on its surface, emitting a dark golden glow, mysterious and ancient. The primordial heavenly lord's figure floated down before the temple. The heavy, massive temple doors were tightly sealed like a towering mountain. Numerous Sanskrit characters moved across its surface, making one dizzy just by looking at them. The primordial heavenly lord narrowed his eyes slightly. A golden thread flew from above the celestial court and wrapped around his fingertip. He formed a sword finger with his right hand and slashed through the void before him. Boom! The celestial court's essence instantly sliced the temple door diagonally in half. The heavy doors slowly collapsed, emitting a deafening roar. Brahma, the primordial heavenly lord, stood before the shattered temple door and spoke expressionlessly. This poor Taoist has come to visit with the celestial court. Why do you close your doors and refuse to come out? The dust raised by the collapsing doors drifted through the dim temple. In the deepest part, among countless empty stone statues, a golden statue with 4 faces and 4 arms trembled slightly, with bits of dust falling from its body. Among the 4 faces, the eyes on one face slowly opened. Primordial. The deep voice echoed within the temple. The dust floating in the air instantly fell to the ground, and an extremely terrifying aura emanated from the statue. Sensing this aura, the primordial heavenly lord frowned slightly. So the destructive evil thoughts have indeed taken control. Who helped you reclaim your body? Zeus. The 4-faced statue remained silent. The primordial heavenly lord nodded slightly, understanding in his heart. He helped you reclaim your true form and control the temple of the gods, while you used the temple to help him defeat Nyx, allowing him to regain most of the control over Olympus. Now the 2 divine realms are united in pressuring my Daxia. Quite a scheme you've concocted. Destruction. The central face among the 3 open-eyed faces spoke solemnly. As this voice sounded, the entire temple of the gods began to shake violently, and the supreme divine authority swept through the temple. Boom! A dark golden pillar of light shot up from the broken ground beneath the temple of the gods, straight into the clouds. Golden halos spread outward and the powerful force of destiny rolled over, pressing down on the primordial heavenly lord's head. Within the soaring dark golden pillar, numerous Buddha silhouettes emerged, like reliefs embedded in national destiny. As the force of destiny gradually intensified, countless solemn and indifferent eyes opened one after another. Actively initiating a battle of national destiny? The primordial heavenly lord saw this and sneered, "It seems you are indeed prepared. However, do you think this is enough to defeat my Dasha's national destiny?" The primordial heavenly lord's wide sleeves trembled slightly as he proclaimed loudly, "Where is my Dasha's national destiny?" As winds and waves swept across the island, a voice suddenly echoed in everyone's mind. "Finally, it's our turn." Li Qingqiang, who had been waiting on the island for a long time, immediately brightened up and stood abruptly. The next moment, a surging torrent of national destiny rose to the sky, like the head of a golden dragon, roaring toward the heavens. Atop this dragon of national destiny, a figure wearing tattered armor and holding a long spear stood firm like a rock. The 5 figures of Nie Jinshan, Li Qingqiang, Tang Yuxing, Wang Qing and Gong Yongwan simultaneously transformed into golden lights and merged into the roaring golden dragon. As Huo Xubing, standing on the dragon, raised his hand, a towering black destiny gate appeared in midair. At the same time, in the Temple of the Gods, behind the primordial heavenly lord, a destiny gate appeared out of thin air. A golden dragon, several times thicker than India's pillar of destiny, roared out and transformed into an endless river flowing in the sky. 6 figures emerged from the torrent of national destiny. Huo Xubing, at the lead, fixed his gaze on the giant pillar in the distance, and a surging killing intent rose to the heavens. "Dasha's national destiny is here. I, Huo Xubing, by the heavenly lord's command, have come to sever your destiny." As his words fell, the 6 figures, treading on the surging national destiny, charged directly toward India's pillar of destiny. The Buddha relief carvings embedded in the pillar seemed to come alive, quickly engaging in battle with the 6 heroic spirits. The primordial heavenly lord's gaze fixed on Brahma's statue as golden flowers floated out from the void. He stepped forward, his aura rising steadily. "Your temple of the gods has sent out all its deities, while my Dasha gods remain on guard. The essences of both divine realms are here. Let's see whether my Dasha will falter first or your temple of the gods will be shattered to pieces by this poor Taoist first." The primordial heavenly lord's voice grew increasingly cold. The golden threads circling above the celestial court all flowed toward his palm. The celestial court's essence filled the temple of the gods, and the terrible pressure caused frightening cracks to appear all over the temple's surface. Brahma's statue raised all 4 pairs of arms simultaneously. A huge lotus flower slowly bloomed beneath the divine throne, releasing an equally terrifying essence.